The 9,865th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation concerning the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Rwanda to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Agenda Item 2. Members of the Council have before them document S/2025/108. The text of a draft resolution submitted by France. The Council is ready to proceed to vote on the draft resolution before it. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/108 please raise their hand. The result of the vote is as follows. The draft resolution received 15 votes in favor. The draft resolution has been adopted unanimously as Resolution 2773/2025. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make a statement after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of France.
Mr. President, France wishes to thank the members of the Security Council for their commitment during the negotiations on this resolution over the past week. This delivers a clear message. There is no military solution to the conflict in the east of the DRC. The offensive carried out by the M23 supported by Rwanda must be put to an end. The priority is to reach an effective, unconditional, and immediate ceasefire agreement. A restoration of dialogue is urgent, with support from mediation at the regional level. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC need to be respected. The Rwandan forces must, without delay, withdraw from Congolese territory, as has already been declared by the United Nations Secretary General, as well as the members of this Security Council. MONUSCO needs to be able to carry out its mandate for the benefit of the civilian population without being obstructed in its efforts nor freedom of movement. This resolution recalls the clear role of the Luanda and Nairobi processes with a view to reaching a sustainable political solution hinging on the complete withdrawal of Rwandan forces and the dismantling of the FDLR. Mr. President, with nearly 1 million displaced persons and thousands of dead and horrific atrocities having been perpetrated, civilian populations are paying a heavy price following the escalation of this conflict which has been protracted. We have been observing a conflict, and the risk is that this may spill over into a regional conflagration. There is a need for the Council to speak clearly, to facilitate cessation of hostilities for de-escalation alongside regional initiatives which France supports. A number of regions in the country on Wednesday spoke out in favor of this call. To conclude, I welcome the fact that the Security Council has risen to its responsibility, and I wish to take this opportunity to thank you.
I thank France. I give the floor to Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. Algeria has voted in favor of the draft resolution on the situation in the eastern DRC. We thank the pen holders for their efforts and thank the Council members for the consensus achieved. My delegation participated in the consensus while delivering observations on certain provisions during the negotiations. Mr. President, Algeria expresses its deep concern for the situation in the eastern DRC. And we call for the end of the hostilities and de-escalation in the provinces of North Kivu and South Kivu, and restoring stability, in particular in Goma and Bukavu. We also reiterate our call on the conflicting parties to immediately reach a ceasefire and return to the negotiations table in the context of the negotiation processes adopted by the African Union in order to end the bloodshed and to prevent the escalation in the region. In this context, my delegation warmly welcomes the statement by the African Union's Peace and Security Council on the 14th of February 2025. The statement clearly emphasized that the political settlement is the only means to end the conflict in the DRC and in the Great Lakes region, in the context of both Luanda and Nairobi processes, which were recently merged as per the recommendations of the leaders of the East African Community and the SADC. This in order to coordinate the handling of this conflict and its drivers, and in consistency with the principle of African solutions for African problems. We commit to this principle as Africans who hold their continent dear. Mr. President, my delegation shares the concern of the UN and the international community with regards to the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the eastern DRC. While the death toll keeps rising, and that has reached 3,000 deaths from last month, and an unprecedented increase in IDPs who have reached 500,000 displaced persons. In addition, disease is spreading and corpses are decaying, and there is no minimum standard of health services. In this context, we call on the parties to facilitate humanitarian access to reach the affected population and to open the humanitarian corridors and airports to facilitate relief efforts by the United Nations and the international community, and to alleviate the impact of this crisis on the population in the area. Mr. President, Algeria calls on all parties to adopt the approach of dialogue and goodwill to address the issues without blame and accusations and a zero-sum game or a confrontation, in order to reach a lasting settlement that is fair and comprehensive, in a manner that preserves the sovereignty of the DRC, its territorial integrity, and in a manner that addresses the legitimate concerns of DRC's neighbors. We also call on all external actors outside the continent to end the negative interventions and to do away with increasing influence in the region, some of which are the legacy of a gone colonization era, and to support the mediation efforts of the AU and the other organizations taking part in the settlement process. In conclusion, Algeria reiterates its readiness to commit to any sincere effort that will serve the de-escalation in the Great Lakes region that will restore the confidence and trust between the parties in order to build a better future for all the peoples of the region. The region, as all people and countries in Africa, aspire to peaceful coexistence and prosperity and to reap the benefits of their natural resources that they have been blessed with. They also aspire to cooperate against the looting attempts and plundering attempts by any actor, whoever they may be. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Sierra Leone thanks France for its efforts leading to the adoption of Resolution 2773. We voted in favor of today's resolution on the situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in line with our firm commitments to African-led solutions, regional peace efforts, and the pursuit of dialogue as the only sustainable pathway to lasting stability in Eastern DRC. Our vote also took into consideration the United Nations Charter principles and the mandate of the UN Security Council, including in supporting regional arrangement in pursuit of peace and stability. The resolution underscores the urgent need for a cessation of hostilities, the withdrawal of all uninvited foreign forces, and renewed engagement in diplomatic dialogue through the merged Rwanda and Nairobi processes. It affirms our shared belief that there is no military solution to the conflict and that the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the unity of DRC must be upheld. Sierra Leone welcomes the strong support for regional initiatives led by the African Union, the East African Community, the Economic Community of Central African States, the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, and the Southern African Development Community. These efforts reflect the principle that African challenges require African leadership and solutions, with the support of the international community. We strongly condemn the ongoing hostilities and remain deeply concerned by the humanitarian crisis, forced displacement, and the suffering of civilians, including reports of human rights abuses and sexual and gender-based violence. We reaffirm our full support for MONUSCO and SAMI DRC in fulfilling their mandates to protect civilians and restore peace. The illegal exploitation of natural resources remain a key driver of instability in the region. We call for greater accountability, transparency, and adherence to international frameworks to prevent the financing of armed groups through illicit mineral trade. Sierra Leone urges all parties, particularly the government of the DRC and Rwanda, to recommit to diplomatic dialogue and fully implement their agreed commitment. We emphasize the need for coordinated and harmonized mediation efforts under His Excellency President João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço of Angola, Chairperson of the African Union, and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, to advance a credible political solution to the crisis. Mr. President, for 11 years, Sierra Leone experienced a tragic civil war that accounted for more than 50,000 lives. As in the case of Congo, this council authorized a peacekeeping mission, including the first protection of civilian mandate. Our path to ending the decade-long cycle of violence was not easy. At some point, we realized that our conflict will not end through decisive military victories, and that dialogue and negotiation is the only viable path to lasting peace. We had to talk with each other in good faith and commit to signing a peace agreement with the necessary political will. Talking to adversaries is hard, perhaps a taboo for some, but we do not make peace with friends, but with adversaries. Like Sierra Leone, A similar roadmap is being offered as outlined in the harmonized plan under the Rwanda process. The plan provides a solid basis for Rwanda to disengage its forces and for the DRC to neutralize the FDLR. We urge Council members as well as the broader international community to meaningfully support this African-led initiative that will bring Rwanda and DRC to the negotiating table in good faith. In voting in favor of this resolution, Sierra Leone stands in solidarity with the people of the DRC and the broader region. We remain committed to supporting all efforts that advance peace, security, and sustainable development in line with the principles of the UN Charter and the aspirations of the African continent. Dialogue is a fundamental tool for conflict resolution, but its success depends on strong implementation and compliance mechanisms for agreed commitment, political will, and addressing root causes. As dialogue remains the key to long-term stability, Sierra Leone's peace process demonstrates that a well-structured peace agreement, backed by regional and international support, can transform a war-torn country, a lesson that can guide efforts to end the conflict in eastern DRC. Sierra Leone will continue to engage constructively to ensure the full and effective implementation of this resolution. I thank you.
I thank Sierra Leone for the statement. I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, the Russian Federation voted in favor of the draft resolution submitted by France to the Security Council in connection with the deterioration of the situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This is an important resolution for all of us, first and foremost for the Congolese civilian population. This was adopted following a protracted compromise and many hours of protracted diplomatic work, both here in New York and during the summits of African leaders. This is a resolution in support of the Charter of the United Nations, the cornerstone for the modern-day system of international relations. This needs to be fulfilled by the parties without delay. The hostilities must be put to an end. Lives need to be saved. Ordinary people need to be able to return to their homes. In Rwanda and the DRC need to once again sit down at the negotiating table to reaffirm their mutual obligation, reach agreement on conditions for a sustained long-term resolution to all disagreement. This resolution also helps to build upon regional efforts and is geared first and foremost towards the parties reaching implementation in good faith and conscientiously implementation of measures which were agreed upon by the Africans at the highest level. Otherwise, the region will be faced with yet another brutal war with colossal human casualties. We need to draw lessons from the past and not repeat the errors of the past. Thank you.
I thank Russian Federation. I give the floor to the representative of the UK.
Thank you, President. The United Kingdom is grateful for the efforts of France as penholder and the engagement of all Council members to enable the adoption today of this important resolution. The UK welcomes and fully supports this text. We hope it makes a positive contribution to the diplomatic leadership in the region, especially the recent EAC-SADC summit, and helps bring an end to this conflict. UK ministers are engaging intensively to support a diplomatic end to the conflict because there is no military solution. President, the violations we have seen in recent weeks in eastern DRC are wholly unacceptable. Today's resolution sends a clear message that these violations must stop and the parties must return to the African-led political processes. It makes clear that there needs to be a ceasefire and the withdrawal of M23 from Goma and Bukavu. We strongly urge M23 to immediately cease hostilities. No member states should impede this. It also makes clear that international humanitarian law must be respected, as must MONUSCO's mandate. And critically, it makes clear that DRC's sovereignty, territorial integrity, as well as the UN Charter, must be respected. The UK supports this resolution's call for all Rwandan defence forces to withdraw from Congolese territory. We urge the parties to fully abide by this resolution. Otherwise, this Council will need to consider further action. I thank you.
I thank the UK for the statement. I give the floor to Panama.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, President. We'd like to thank the delegation of France for presenting the draft resolution and for their efforts to reach consensus on the negotiations on the document. As we are discussing the matter here, the security situation in the east of the DRC remains extremely volatile and it continues to deteriorate rapidly. Panama reiterates its unwavering commitment to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC. With this resolution, we reiterate the collective call on the M23 and the Rwandan Defence Forces immediately to cease their advance and to completely withdraw from the area, fully respecting the ceasefire and the ongoing mediation process. Through our vote in favour of this resolution, we've also reaffirmed our support to the invaluable work of MINUSCO, whose commitment to peace and stability in the region cannot be called into question. We reiterate our support to the regional efforts to address this crisis, stressing that there can be no military solution here. We urge all parties to prioritise diplomacy and political commitment and to immediately resume negotiations and dialogue in the context of the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Thank you.
I thank Panama and give the floor to Pakistan.
Mr. President, for several weeks now, the situation in the eastern DRC has been in a dangerous downward spiral with dire humanitarian consequences. This has set back seriously the efforts for peace and stability in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the progress made in that regard over the last many years with the support of the international community. The United Nations and this Council itself, including through the peacekeeping missions, have invested heavily for the success of this endeavor. We cannot afford a failure. We must not let everything unravel before our eyes. It was right for the Council to keep a close watch over the developments as manifested by a series of meetings in recent weeks. It was also logical for this Council to pronounce itself quickly and clearly to fulfill its responsibility to help restore peace and security in the eastern DRC. Pakistan believes that the resolution we have just adopted is an important and necessary step towards that objective. We appreciate France for facilitating the discussions and welcome the consensus achieved. The resolution reaffirms Security Council's strong commitment to the sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity of the DRC and upholds the fundamental principles of the UN Charter. Most importantly, it welcomes and supports the regional efforts and processes and high-level engagements led